The New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks have exceeded expectations and made it all the way to the Super Bowl. We never thought that Sam Darnold and the Seahawks would go all the way to the Super Bowl, that Mike Vrabel and Drake May in their first year together would go all the way to the Super Bowl. And so as we think about exceeding expectations, how often in life are we experiencing exceeded expectations? And do we realize that God's power, God's love, and God's grace exceeds expectations? Let's unpack it. Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast, where we unpack parallels, metaphors, and topics in sports that relate to life and faith. I'm Bryce Johnson, coming to you from a chilly downtown Mount Holly, just outside of Charlotte, just after the storm of the decade. We did get some snow. We mainly got ice. We got some freezing rain. We did survive. And I am joined today in studio by Trip Smith. We'll say hello to him in just a moment. But on today's episode, we are unpacking our initial thoughts on the Super Bowl. Of course, we have 2 weeks to talk about this pretty amazing matchup, at least from the standpoint that we're talking about today. The reality that, nobody expected this. Nobody expected this. I would say nobody really expected this even at the start of the playoffs. Maybe people expected the Seahawks to be there. Maybe. And there's some diehard Seahawks fans. Our producer, Aaron, is all excited. He was at the game, actually, in Seattle, and is still stuck there in Seattle. So we hope that he makes it back safely. But for the Patriots, I don't know. I think we were expecting the Bills. We were expecting the Broncos. Who would have expected that Bo Nix would go down? And so it creates great anticipation for this game. And so we'll talk about it today. Plus, big news in the coaching world. The Steelers hire Mike McCarthy. Today, just before we started recording, Joe Brady announced as the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So we'll get some instant reaction on that. A couple other topics we want to get to after today's devotional topic as we unpack the concept of exceeding expectations. But before we jump in, I do want to thank our sponsor, Upward Sports, and specifically want to encourage you to check out Upward Running. Join the Upward Running movement. With the Run Club app, you'll find a training plan that's the perfect fit for you. Upward Running. It's the adult arm of Upward Sports, and they exist to help you grow both physically and spiritually. So with your membership, you'll enjoy proven training plans for every pace and level, a community of encouraging runners and walkers, devotions to inspire your faith and fuel your journey. And all of this is on the app waiting for you. And so whether you're starting from the couch or chasing a 5K finish line, Upward Running is here to get you moving with purpose. Visit upwardrunning.com and become a member today and tell them that the Unpacking It podcast sent you, upwardrunning.com. Thanks, everybody, watching, listening. We try to get this show out there to different platforms. So YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, we're there. So whether you're watching or listening, so thankful to have your support. Also, thanks to our listeners on the Glue Network as well. So if you haven't downloaded the Glue app, GLU, be sure to check that out as well. You can watch us on your TV using that app as well. So glad to be with you today. Glad to be nice and warm here in the studio. Trip, how did you survive? How are you doing? Here we are today.
The Smith family had a great weekend, Bryce. Thanks for asking. I mean, I think I love going to church on Sundays. I know that's not everyone's experience. I'm thankful to say that at this season of my life, I enjoy going to church on Sunday. My family enjoys going to church on Sunday. That said, there's something nice here in North Carolina when, you know, that one 1/10 of an inch of ice shuts everything down for 48 hours. That's a little bit tongue in cheek. We actually had a pretty significant ice storm here.
It was
a legit storm. But so all of the churches around here were canceled. And my family, we had a nice, slow Sunday morning. We segued that into like kind of a late morning, early afternoon of sledding, which was a lot of fun. And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's Sunday. Football is on today. And we got to watch one game that I would say was an interesting game because of the weather and some of the factors that were at play before the game started, but was a slow, low-scoring game, and then capped it off with a really excellent, exciting, high-scoring offensive slugfest on Sunday night. So great weekend this week. And my son was like, Daddy, when is... I'm so happy that he's at the age where he's starting to ask this. Daddy, when is the next football game? When's the next football game? And I said, buddy, there's only one left.
That's it.
It's the Super Bowl. It's the championship. And he said, why? He said, I want more football games. Why only one football game? Which really warmed my heart, but it just reminded me, let's cherish these last 2 weeks before the big game, before the season is over.
It's all we get. And know the Pro Bowl does not scratch the itch. So we only have one game left. And it was funny, my 4-year-old daughter, Michaela, she asked when the Panthers were playing. So sadly, to break that to her, that they are done. We'll see them in September. I was like, kind of August. We get to see them a little bit in August, but basically September. Not that she understands fully what September means. But
right. Time doesn't mean anything at that age. They're like, September, that's an eternity away. Football's over forever.
Yeah. I don't know how else to
One
phrase
more
it.
game, baby.
One more game. So we got a good one. So we'll talk about the matchup here in a second. I did just want some initial thoughts on the Joe Brady hire for the Bills. And last week here on the podcast, I made the case. I was glad that the Bills decided to make a change and do something different. And so moving on from Sean McDermott, I thought that approach was the right one. As I was thinking about last week's show, I also didn't have an answer or a solution on what the Bills should do. So we talked last week what the solution is in our own lives. We need to make changes and do something different. Instead of always doing it our way, we need to do it God's way. So that's the answer. But with the Bills, I didn't necessarily know what the answer is, and I'm not convinced that Joe Brady is this answer that gets them over the hump. But I was telling you before the show that the heart of what we were talking about last week is that the Bills are so close. They're right there. They win a ton of games in the regular season. So it really is just a slight change. It's a small change. And maybe elevating Joe Brady and getting kind of a new overall leader maybe makes the difference. We see this sometimes in companies. They move on from a CEO and somebody in the building that maybe is still a part of it, but hey, they're having great success, but the new CEO gets them over the hump. Maybe that's the case with Joe Brady. I've got my concerns, but I understand the thought process if that truly is the case.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, that feels like a good analogy there with kind of the new CEO that rises up from within, right? You feel like the Bills have they have a great culture around their football team. They seem to have a solid sort of organizational culture within their team and offices. I think the McDermott firing was just as much kind of a wake-up call as anything, right? You are close. You have a limited number of years with a quarterback like Josh Allen. And so it's like, hey, we have got to be serious about getting to the Super Bowl, about winning a Super Bowl. This fan base that is just desperate for a Super Bowl, we have to make that happen. And so I expected it to be Joe Brady. I talked last week about how I was a little bit confused with the Brandon Beane promotion, the GM who became the president of football operations. And there was a little bit of just controversy or like infighting among the talking sports head around Brandon Beane. But I don't think that this was a bad move on the Bills' part. It's maybe not an exciting move from kind of like a news pundit, kind of just sports talking heads perspective, but I think this was the right move. I will
to get Brady.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. He has been one of the best offensive coordinators, I think, in the NFL over the last few seasons. He already has the working relationship with Josh Allen. They need to get in, I think, one really great wide receiver. But the interesting thing is going to be to see who he surrounds himself with in terms of offensive and defensive coordinator. I think especially with him being a really offensive-minded guy, they need to get a great DC in there and shore up some of the issues that they've had on defense over the last few seasons. Because I think with Josh Allen at quarterback, you are always going to have an offense that is going to keep you in games and give you a chance to win at the end. Wouldn't it be great to just have a shutdown defense along with that so that some of these games you're not even in question in the fourth quarter and you can just win just decisively. So that I think is actually going to be the real sort of, nobody will get excited about the defensive coordinator hire, but that's actually going to be, I think, one of the more important decisions they make this offseason.
Can he get a former head coach who's a previous defensive coordinator, get him in there as the new D coordinator? I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon just went to the Packers. I'm trying to think who else is out there, but maybe that would be the answer.
Was Raheem Morris a defensive guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bad
That's
one.
an interesting one. I've heard he's in conversations for some of these
Yeah.
head coaching jobs that are still open. But,
I would think more of an older coach. Even Raheem's a little bit younger.
Yeah, he's a young guy. That's right. Yeah.
Almost another coach that realizes, all right, I'm probably not going to be a head coach again. I'm going to be a defensive
That's
coordinator.
interesting. Yeah. So those hires are going to matter. It's not the kind of thing that's going to get talked a lot about in like kind of the headline news stories. But I think, my real takeaway here is that, I mean, the pressure is going to be absolute. I mean, the pressure in that pressure cooker is going to be turned up to 11 in Buffalo this season, because certainly they have to at least reach the level that they reached this previous season, make it to the playoffs, and make a push for the Super Bowl. And I think if something happens and they fall well short of that, then you're just questioning everything at that point, and it might be kind of a full reset, which is not what you want to see when Josh Allen's kind of going into, like, he's approaching 30. So yeah.
Well, they're giving Joe Brady 5 years, so they're all in.
Does that
they're all
mean
in.
anything? I don't think he's getting fired. To be clear, I don't think he's getting fired after one season. But if something funky happens and they win 7 games this coming season, I would say that he's immediately like on the hot seat, and then you're really questioning every decision that you've made with McDermott, with Brady, with Bean. So it'll be a fascinating season this coming year for the Buffalo Bills. For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, one other piece too is as we think about the coaching staff. I think this is always so underrated. You got to have a great staff. You look at these teams; they have great staffs,
right?
That are really successful year after year, and being able to keep coordinators and all that sort of thing. What is interesting to me though, with Sean McDermott, it looks like he's going to not coach this year. That was sort of what I saw today, which makes sense. There's not really a great opportunity. He doesn't want to go coach the Raiders, and so that means that whole coaching staff are they're free agents. Will Joe Brady bring any of McDermott's guys? I'm sure he will bring some of them. Who? How many? And is that enough of a change? You're already bringing Brady back, or are they just running it back without McDermott? And will that be beneficial? So that's going to be interesting. But we'll talk more coaching at the end of the show because the Pittsburgh Steelers hired an interesting name.
I really want to talk about this one
as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. But as we think about head coaching and we look at the Super Bowl, Mike Macdonald, year number 2, has gotten his Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Mike Vrabel, year 1 with the Patriots, into the Super Bowl. And so these are remarkable stories. And what really hit me in thinking about all the conversations surrounding both of these teams is just the reality that they exceeded expectations. I heard today before the season they were 60-1 odds to make it to the Super Bowl, both teams, which is interesting. So they were on the same level of long shots, and here they are. And so in thinking back to sort of before the season, what were we saying? And me for sure, I know I was totally out on the Seahawks, did not believe in Sam Darnold, have never believed in Sam Darnold. So I'm on that bandwagon, and very wrong. I was in on the Patriots. Like, I thought, I drafted Drake May. I've said it over and over. I love Mike Vrabel, but I never expected them to go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
No way. And so here's some things let me run through. This was being said or maybe asked before the season. Can Sam Darnold really make the Seahawks better than what they were with Geno Smith? Like, many people just thought it was sort of a parallel move, or what do you call that? What's the phrase?
Move, yeah.
Lateral. Thank you. And people were saying it's likely the Seahawks will be able to get through the NFC West. People were talking Rams and Niners, even being better teams than the Seahawks. And then with Mike Macdonald, it was like, well, he's a good young coach, but even if the Seahawks compete for a playoff spot, becoming a Super Bowl contender doesn't appear possible. And then with the Patriots, they're 4-13 in 2024. They might be more competitive with Mike Vrabel as head coach, but the AFC is just too tough. Because who are we talking about? The Bills and Josh Allen, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, of course Mahomes and the Chiefs, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. How is Drake May and Vrabel and the Patriots going to get through those teams? That was the thought. And then with Drake May, sure, he's got some potential, but being elite in his second season, considering how young, not anticipated. And then lastly, Vrabel had some success as a head coach in Tennessee, but it's not as though he can make them a Super Bowl team in his first year. So that's what the narratives were. Is that what you kind of were thinking about both these teams, and which of those narratives sort of is most impressive? The fact that here they are in the Super Bowl.
Which one's more impressive? I mean, I think the leap that Drake May has made in his second season is truly impressive. And I think he's 23 years old. And if you just look at statistically the season that he had, from a completion percentage perspective, from a passing yards perspective, and even from we've talked enough about this that you can't say this is an underrated part of his game anymore. But from a rushing perspective, as a quarterback that can run as well, a smart runner who doesn't take too many hits, so he runs, but he's not a Jackson Dart who just throws his body into harm's way.
Drake was healthy all year.
Healthy all year long, always smart to get out of bounds or to slide. So I think you and I were both expecting him to make a leap this season. And during the regular season, we were hearing this argument of easy schedule, right? Easy schedule can get you into the playoffs. It doesn't get you to the Super Bowl. And they've just played solid, beat some solid teams during the playoffs here. It would have been interesting to see them have to play the Broncos led by Bo Nix instead of by Jarrett Stidham. Feels like it could have been the difference, but they're in the Super Bowl, and I think they deserve to be in the Super Bowl. I'll actually say I think maybe the Seahawks. I really think that McDonald could really be an excellent coach. And I remember hearing at the beginning of the season, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the Ringer Sports Talk guys who said McDonald he runs a complicated defense that takes even professional players a season or more to figure out. And something that we saw about a third of the way through this season is that defense really started to click. You could tell that the team really started to get the scheme that he was trying to run. And that defense looks ferocious, which is going to that'll tell you who my prediction for winning this Super Bowl matchup is. I really think that the Seahawks defense, I think, is really elite. And so I had fewer doubts about Darnold than you did, but I didn't expect this for either one of these teams, for them to go all the way to the Super Bowl, for Drake May to make this leap, for Darnold to be able to put to rest some of the concerns that were expressed about him at the end of the regular season, the beginning of the playoffs with the Vikings last year. He has looked good in the playoffs and looked really, really good in this Rams game. So I'm excited for this matchup, man, and nobody saw it coming at the beginning of the year.
No, and I think a key part of this too, and this doesn't always happen, but when it does, it creates this sense of urgency, is how quickly both of these teams turned around.
Yeah.
I mean, and it makes it unrealistic for other teams. And we just talked about this with Indiana last week. Like, now everybody thinks they can just turn things around so quickly. It's very hard to do. It's very rare. But when you hit, and Mike McDonald was the right fit in Seattle, boom, it worked. Mike Vrabel in New England, boom, it worked. Signetti in Indiana, boom, it works. But you don't expect it. You don't anticipate it. You expect it to take longer. And so I think that's the big part, especially with New England, to go from 4 wins to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's a big deal. And then I just think if we pull back too, did we really expect the Patriots to be this good again?
Right.
Like, didn't we just think that, oh, come on, they had their run, and maybe we could bring up the topic too. I think this is an interesting one. Are the Patriots fans the most spoiled fan base maybe ever? I mean, what they've been able to do. Like, we've talked about the Packers when they went from Favre to Rodgers, even to Jordan Love. It's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. For the Steelers to go from Noel the Coward to Tomlin and, all that kind of thing. Even for the Colts to go from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. But for the Patriots to have the run that they had, to now all of a sudden they've got Vrabel and Drake May, and this is the start of a new dynasty? Get out of here. Who expected this?
That's an interesting question. Is it the start of a new dynasty? The way that May played, if you're a Patriots hater, and there are a lot of them out there, the way that Drake May played this season has got to be concerning to you, because he is young. He's not just getting by on his athletic prowess. He's a smart quarterback who is a good, sharp passer, and you've got to be really, really concerned for what they might be building there in New England. And even, I think you're right. The Patriots have to be on the short list for it doesn't apply to college sports in the same way, but for professional sports teams and fan bases that are spoiled, they've got to be on the short list for most spoiled in recent memory. But the Seahawks have been no slouch over the last 20 years either. I would say
fourth Super Bowl.
They had some lean years after Russell Wilson left, but for the most part, Wilson's time as quarterback there, they appeared in 2 Super Bowls and won a Super Bowl. They were always pretty solid. So I would say over the last 20 years, they've been one of the more kind of fun fan bases, I think, to be a part of in the NFL as well. So not on the same level as the Patriots, but these are 2 teams that you can't say they have been long suffering in waiting to get back to this place, because both of them have some good teams and some good QBs in recent memory.
That's right. And then when the Seahawks with Matt Hasselbeck, was that another Super Bowl with Mike Holmgren?
That's right.
Sean Alexander?
Hasselbeck was early 2000s, is that right? Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's just something to be said for these professional sports teams that probably have solid owners that just...
2005, that's when they were in the,
okay,
that was in the Super Bowl, yeah.
Right. I mean, so they again, you can say on a short-term basis, surprising to see both of these teams back in the Super Bowl so soon. But taking the longer view, you're like, okay, these have been 2 of the more solid NFL franchises in the last 25 years.
That's right. So it's not shocking from that standpoint. Yeah. It's just what we expected at the beginning of the season to what we saw play out. That's the remarkable part of it. And so many of the things that happened, even with Sam Darnold, like take each player in each situation. Who expected Sam Darnold to throw for 46 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Rams? Okay, that with no interceptions. After previously, some tough matchups against the Rams, the pressure that the Rams have been able to get on Sam Darnold in recent games. And then you go back to last year and the sort of the debacle that he had with the Vikings in the playoffs did not rise to the occasion. For him to rise to the occasion in this NFC Championship game, people didn't expect that. People expected maybe more of what he did the previous week where, hey, he was solid, but they ran the ball. It was all about defense, that kind of thing. No, Darnold went head-to-head with Stafford. This was a back and forth. Oh, you scored? Well, I'm going to score. I'm going to march my team down the field. And we're talking about the MVP of the league maybe in Stafford.
Yeah.
And Darnold was doing that.
He was playing right there with him. And I would say...
You got to give him the love for that.
Absolutely, man. And it makes me... I'm not going to say that I expected it, but I definitely wanted it for him. And I think that there were signs there that it was possible. I mean, I just think this guy, coming out of college, he was touted as... He had the talent, he had the athletic ability, he had all of the measurables to be a good NFL quarterback. And then what happened? He got drafted by an absolutely dysfunctional Jets franchise in some of their worst years, even for kind of a dysfunctional team, and so he was just thrown into a terrible, terrible situation to start your NFL career with as a quarterback. And then he was sort of resuscitated by Kevin O'Connell, who is known to be kind of a quarterback whisperer with Minnesota last year. I think a really interesting side conversation that we can't have today is, did Minnesota make the right decision letting Sam Darnold leave?
Horrible decision.
It looks bad now. I think they probably had to do it in the situation they were in, but I think there were signs there for Darnold that he was capable of this, and I hope that this is representative of what the rest of his career looks like as an NFL quarterback, because we expected him to be great coming into the NFL, and then his career just got off to an absolutely brutal start. But now for the last 2 seasons, he has been a part of stable, functional teams, and he looks like the kind of quarterback that could potentially win you a Super Bowl. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL by any means, but he looks like the kind of guy that if he's got the right pieces around him, if he has a great defense, and a guy who I think is inserting himself into the conversation about being the best wide receiver in the NFL, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think that he can get you there, and I expect them to win this Super Bowl matchup. I expect them to win this game.
All right, so I expect Seattle to win as well. I think just right out of the gate, it's like, yeah, Seattle's the better team. Like they're a more complete team, even special teams wise with Shaheed as a returner. Gosh. I mean, they've got a lot.
Guy they acquired at the trade deadline, by the way. Really smart trade they made for him. Just important to remember, he was not on this team at the beginning of the season, and he's one of those guys that they said, this is a move that we're making. We said it at the time. They're making this move because they think that they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
Now it's mid-season.
So I think all signs, and my guess is throughout the next couple of weeks, the majority of people will go, oh yeah, Seattle should win. Like they're the favorites. But what we see in the Super Bowl, wild things happen. So it's always fun. But yeah, I think on paper, I don't think you can really make the case that New England is a better team than Seattle. I mean, did Drake May have a better season than Sam Darnold? Yeah, and a lot of metrics.
For sure.
He did. But I don't see where New England necessarily has a real strong advantage.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry is better than A.J. Barner.
Is he, though? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He definitely is, but I love A.J. Barner. I love what has happened with A.J. Barner this season. That's a weird sort of niche story that has made me really, really excited as a Barner believer. I will say the Seahawks defense has just been solid. They don't make very many mistakes, but there's a wider range of outcomes for the Patriots defense. They make more mistakes and have more sort of like brain slips where things kind of get messed up for them. But the top end, the ceiling of what the Patriots defense is capable of with guys like Christian Gonzalez, Gonzalez, when he's playing his best, can be the kind of guy that could give JSN trouble or could shut down a receiver on another team. He's younger. He makes more mistakes. But I think if their defense really shows up and plays the absolute best that they're capable of playing, then we might get a surprising defensive slugfest in the Super Bowl. Seems like there are always nerves. There's always a little bit of that 2-week rust at play that makes Super Bowl games start off slowly from an offensive perspective. And I think we could see one of these games that sort of surprisingly comes in under the Vegas line for over-under and is more of a defensive battle than we expect it to be.
I will say I would still trust Mike Vrabel more than Mike Macdonald because
that's an interesting, yeah.
Vrabel's won a Super Bowl, of course, as a player. I just think, he's a little older. He's been around. I just trust him more. Not to mention Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator. So that's where they probably have the advantage.
He seems inspirational.
Some of the experience.
If you were in the trenches and you were about to get in like a fist fight to the death, Mike Vrabel, you'd be hard pressed to find a guy that this is a guy that I want next to me, that I'm in a literal fight for my life. He just seems like a man who inspires other men to fight so hard. I think that I'm in the camp of 3 seasons from now, we will be talking about Macdonald as one of the best head coaches in the NFL. I think that he's on this trajectory where we're seeing the front edge of what is going to be a really, really successful coaching career, and I think probably a long stint with the Seattle Seahawks.
Interesting. I probably shouldn't bring this up because it's kind of a stupid comment, but I've been thinking about this for a while. Whenever I see Mike Macdonald, I can't believe he's my age.
Uh-huh.
Isn't
that annoying? Some of these guys now the coaches in the NFL that are the same age as you and me.
Well, here's what I think. I go, wait, he looks older than that.
Did he look older at the beginning of the season, or is that just what an NFL season?
I don't know.
Does to him,
I'm like, no, he can't be that old. Like, he seems like he's older. And then I start to wonder. I go, wait, do I look that old? So I'm 39, and do I look as old as him? He just seems like he's older. So I don't know if that's a me problem or it's a him problem.
I think that might be a you problem.
I don't even know what the problem is exactly. But
I think it might be a me problem too, man. I mean,
I've been thinking about it all year, though. Every time I see him, I go, we're not the same age. I don't believe it.
I'm looking at a picture of him right now, and I'm kind of thinking if he was sitting here in the studio, he might look like the youngest of the 3 of us in the room.
No, he looks older to me. It's like, or maybe like how he carries himself. I don't know.
I'm looking at the team website photos, so maybe he just looked younger at the beginning of the season than he does now. And I also I'm noticing the pecs, and I want to go back and maybe make just a slight qualification to the Vrabel comment that I just made. This is a muscular dude who maybe would put up more of a fight than I thought with Vrabel. So I want to go back and apologize for that comment that I made.
Well, but interesting story for Mike Macdonald was that he in high school got injured and stopped playing, but then hung around the football program.
Interesting. Okay.
Which then when he went to Georgia, was able to be a part of he continued to coach in high school. While in college, he was coaching in high school. And then
that's a great story.
Yeah. And then with John Harbaugh, got an internship, kind of a coaching internship, and worked his way up.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did not know that. I like that.
So sort of a bummer for him to be injured and, was playing football, but then at a very young age realized he wanted to coach. And so here he is. So
seems like a great coach.
Cool story.
Very cool.
So the one other comment I'll make, and then we'll jump into our spiritual parallel here. And this actually has probably its own topic in and of itself. But what's interesting with Sam Darnold specifically is it just took time. And we know this. We talk about it all the time. We're like, man, we rush these quarterbacks. Like, we expect them to be great day one. And it's a bummer because some quarterbacks can, like day one. Cam Newton was great day one for the Panthers. And Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud and, some of these guys come in rookie year. Caleb Williams, second year, looking a little better. Drake May, toward the end of his first year, started coming around. That's when I started noticing him in fantasy. And then this second year really came. But now Darnold, it took many years, many teams, multiple teams for him to get here. And it's just this reminder that it's not every guy's the same. Some guys take a little bit longer. And we have to have some level of patience versus just totally giving up on these guys. I'm quick to sort of judge quarterbacks. I go, nah, doesn't have it. Forget about it. And I don't know if your boy, Anthony Richardson, will ever turn the corner. But for us to just, it's unlikely. But for us to just totally write him off when he's 23 years old is sort of silly for us. And Sam Darnold is a reminder of that. And then from a coaching standpoint, it's like, oh, well, we got to give coaches time. Yeah. And sometimes it does take a few years to sort of build. And I think we're seeing that with the Panthers, with Dave Canales. That was a mess of a situation that he came into.
Yeah.
Now with Seattle, they weren't a huge mess. They've been to the Super Bowl. They have some good things in place. Their front office was good. So Mike McDonald just needed to be a new voice for Seattle to turn things around, this new era for them. And same with Vrabel. Like things had to end with Belichick and they had to move on from a lot of that era. Gerard Mayo wasn't ready, but Vrabel was. He learned in Tennessee. He knew what it took to be a head coach, and he could come in there and do it right away. And so we will see with this coaching carousel, some of these coaches next year, John Harbaugh in New York, they're going to be a playoff contender. I guarantee it. It's just like you would expect that. But some of these other teams that are getting a new coach, the Miami Dolphins, might take a couple years.
Right.
Anyway, so that's just another, it's somewhat obvious, but we have to remind ourselves of this, that it's not always the same. It can happen quickly, but oftentimes it takes some time.
I mean, I think it used to be the kind of through-going belief that a quarterback in the NFL was going to take 3 to 5 years to really develop into. And now it's just the policy of so many of these teams. If you're going to fail fast and find your next guy as quick as you can until you come up with one of these franchise guys in his second year. But I mean, Darnold, it's just, the quarterback being such a cerebral position. And it seems like one of the best paths to recovery for these guys is to find themselves as a backup quarterback or a low stakes sort of quarterback on a high functioning team or under a very stable and mature coach. I mean, I kind of think your point about Anthony Richardson is an interesting one, and it's well taken. I sort of think that Malik Willis is going to get another chance to start in the NFL before it's all said and done. And it's because he's gotten to spend this time in this very stable organization of the Packers under Matt LaFleur, who he comes in and he looks like a really LaFleur. LaFleur.
You really nailed that, LaFleur.
I think I do that about 7 out of 10 times when I say Matt LaFleur's name. I'm just a cultured citizen of the world, man. I'm a global citizen, and I can't help but say the French pronunciation there.
I've been watching this show called Lupin.
Lupin's a pretty good show.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so all that to say, you're right. We just have to remind ourselves, and it is interesting to think how many of these guys just never got a second chance. How many of them maybe could have become a really solid player in the NFL and are just never going to get a chance to become that. And so much of the success that you have as a professional athlete, I think, does have to do with some luck in those first few years that you're in whatever professional league that you're in. Injury luck, what kind of team you're on, what kind of coach you have.
O-line.
And that seems to be O-line. I mean, that seems to be true in the NFL as much as any kind of sports league. So pretty fascinating. I'm happy for Darnold. I want to see him win the Super Bowl. I think that'd be an awesome story.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm rooting for him. I can't believe
you don't like Darnold. You don't like him. I don't understand why you don't like him. What's your problem with Sam Darnold?
In some ways, I hate the reality that I'm rooting for the Patriots. Like Bryce, me at 2006, I can't even believe that I would get to this point.
With you right now.
outrageous. I mean, just absolutely outrageous. This turnaround that I've experienced. It's unacceptable behavior. But I can't help it. Sometimes you can't help who you're rooting for. But I'm rooting for the darn Patriots.
That's right.
It's unacceptable.
When they had Brady, it was like rooting for Thanos. It was just this inevitable juggernaut that you loved to hate. And I'm just worried for you that you might be rooting for these new Patriots because of this new Drake May. And a few years from now, you may just realize, like, here we go again. This is this inevitable juggernaut that's just going to be in contention every season. And I'm going to remind you relentlessly that you were a supporter of their early rise, a fan of this new Patriots. You're a Patriots
fan.
I
was in early on this bandwagon.
Bryce Johnson is a Patriots fan.
And Drake May's a Carolina guy, and I'm a Duke guy. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. So, all right. The bottom line, though, as we look at these two teams and some of the storylines that we've talked about, is how before the season, a lot of doubts, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, especially for Sam Darnold, more than anyone. But even, with Vrabel, there were still some question marks with, what did he really do in Tennessee? If you looked closely, you realized it. But on the surface, many people had questions, doubts, concerns. That was sort of the narrative. And now, flash forward, they've exceeded those expectations. They've gone beyond what we thought. And their greatness has, exceeded the sort of the baseline that we had for these teams and these players and these coaches, and that's where we are. And so in our own lives, we all experience doubts, questions, concerns, and negativity. Things like, that's not possible. There's no way. Like that type of verbiage. And we have, sometimes very little hope and low expectations for certain circumstances, or, maybe it's thoughts like, I can't do this or I can't do that, and things will never change. Things can't get better. I don't see a way out. I don't see how that's possible. I'm not good enough. I'm too young. I'm too old. That ship has sailed, right? Sam Darnold, that ship has sailed. Like, we believe those types of things, and that becomes our, perspective. And similar to these predictions and opinions that we had about these teams before the season, we have those sort of thoughts about ourselves, but also we attach that negativity and those predictions or opinions in the context of our perspective on God and what he's capable of doing. And so if we're honest, there are times where, do I really think he's that powerful? Do I really think he's capable of fixing this situation? Is he really possible? Is it really possible that he can redeem this situation? Can he really transform me? Can he really change this aspect of my character, of my life? And we have this limited view of his almighty and perfect character that we just don't see it sometimes. And so we don't expect him to really show up and do what he says he will do. And so we don't always believe his promises. We have low expectations of it. And so let me pause there. What are sort of your initial thoughts on this?
I mean, life has this way of wearing you down and of disappointing your expectations. This is a theme that's come up in some of our conversations that we've had, Bryce, over the years of, I think we are all born with, and as children, we have immense expectations. We have a taste for adventure. We have deep desires. And if you have sort of a healthy and well-supported childhood, you're taught, every one of these expectations and desires that you have, you can meet it, you can achieve it, you can obtain it. And life, living in a broken world, a world affected by sin and suffering, has a way of disappointing our expectations and hurting our desires. And then the question is, what do we do with that? What happens to us on the inside when that becomes more and more our experience? Do we think of ourselves, just as we talked about some of those young NFL players, those young quarterbacks, do we think, I had to be that immediate success story? I had to be the instant sort of achiever that was just an overnight success for my life to really go the way that I wanted it to go. And if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian or someone who has a category for God in your life and in your story, then I think we start to assign some of that disappointment to him, some of those letdowns to him, and it starts to affect the way that we think about God. So it really is a topic that strikes, I think, close to kind of the deep heart, the deep emotional heart of all of us that has to do with our desires and expectations. And it's a question of, what do we do with that? What do we do with some of that hurt and even some of that cynicism that can creep in when our expectations aren't met or when life isn't going the way that we thought that it would go?
Yeah, no, that's the reality. And the other side of this, though, as followers of Jesus, yeah, we can find ourselves when we really are trusting him, where we are optimistic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We are hopeful.
Yeah,
and we are.
That's what the word hope means in the Bible, I think. The optimism and the continued expectancy, even when suffering and harm comes at you. Yeah. Because
let's face it, so we can compare a couple different NFL teams, because we can end up like Browns fans, and I love the Browns fans, but their negative, the cynicism, it's like, it'll never work out, things will never change, like we're going to stink again. Like that's usually their thoughts even heading into the season. Maybe there's a little glimmer of hope, but that's kind of their thought. But I would say even with like the Seahawks fans this year, their expectation was, maybe we'll be a playoff contender. Even on an optimistic, nobody was thinking that they would be Super Bowl contenders. And so what I started thinking about is, for us as followers of Jesus, we absolutely want to be hopeful and optimistic. And what I've seen in my own life, even as optimistic as I've been in certain moments, I've still seen God exceed my expectations. That even in my kind of limited understanding, my limited comprehension of what he's capable of, he can exceed, he has exceeded, and he will continue to exceed all that we can imagine. He can go beyond our comprehension in so many different ways. And so often, it's not that we limit God. He's limitless. But our faith life, our prayer life, like we limit ourselves because we don't expect God to show up. We don't expect him to do all these things. But even in the doubts, even in our lack of faith or our limited faith, he shows up and he does remarkable, amazing things that we thought were impossible. And so the verse a couple verses I want to read here, this is in Ephesians 3:20. This is the Amplified Translation. This is who we pray to, okay? Now to him who is able to carry out his purpose and do super abundantly more than all that we dare ask or think, infinitely beyond our greatest prayers, hopes, or dreams, according to his power that is at work within us. And let me read this is the paraphrase from the Message, same Ephesians 3:20 and 21. God can do anything, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his spirit deeply and gently within us. And so glory to God in the church, glory to God in the Messiah, in Jesus. And so that's sort of our response too. It's like worship and awe and wonder. And it's like, man, this is a big, wonderful God that does super abundantly beyond even what we can pray for, even what we can imagine, even what we think is possible. He goes beyond that. And it's just this reminder that that's who we serve, that's who we pray to, and that's who we trust. That's who his character is. His greatness is beyond what we can comprehend. And so he will continue to exceed our expectations. And yes, you alluded to it. There are seasons of life where it feels like he's not meeting our expectations. He's not answering the prayers how we wanted him to. And in some ways, that's a whole separate topic. But even in that, I just want to remind ourselves that he's capable of going, even what you're hoping for or you thought you wanted, he's going to blow you away beyond that with the change that you experience in your heart and life and in your character. And sometimes, yes, in circumstances. Not always, but sometimes he will transform circumstances as well. So let me stop there.
That's such a great point, man. And I'm so glad that you said that. Even in the way that I sort of answered your initial question, I'm prone to thinking that he disappoints my expectations and my desires more than he actually does, right? Which is because I'm living, the Christian counselor Paul David Tripp talks a lot about living out of a posture of entitlement versus a posture of gratitude, right? So often I'm thinking, well, God really owed me more than he gave me. But I think if we keep our eyes open to what he's really up to in our lives and ask for a heart posture of gratitude, we start to see, man, he's active all over the place, and he has met and exceeded my expectations in so many ways at so many different points in my life. And it's when we have gratitude for the things that he has done that we start to experience more hope for the things that he is going to do. So I'm so glad that you said that, man. And that's such a great point. And for me, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with Ephesians 3:20. I mean, a lot of this for me is, am I storing away Bible verses and little tidbits of Bible verses in my mind and my heart that help me remember these important truths? And Ephesians 3:20 is like the center of the bullseye. I mean, it is the epicenter for what we're talking about today, that he is able to do exceedingly more than we ask or imagine, that the things that I ask for from him, the things that I imagine that he might do, he's aiming so much higher than that all the time, and he's able to do more than I would imagine. And that's a really important part of this conversation too, right? Is sometimes the things that I am imagining as God's best for me, or the most important things that he wants to do in my life, he has much higher aims than the thing that I would come up with left to my own devices. So I think it's Tim Keller, the pastor Tim Keller, who used to say that when we pray, God always gives you exactly what you would ask for if you knew everything that he knows, right? If you could see the whole scope of what he's trying to accomplish in your life and in the world, you would see that the things that he is bringing about are exceedingly more than you even imagined that he could do. So it's just this verse is such a good reminder to keep that hope, to keep that gratitude, and to pay attention to what God is already up to in your life. It's going to be a bigger story than you realized at the time.
Gosh. Yeah, it's a shift in our approach and perspective, and to parallel this to the Seahawks and Patriots. Yeah, I mean, fans are very appreciative, and there's a lot of celebration and, not to lack of a better term, worship of what these players have done because they've exceeded expectations. And so, yeah, when we pull back and have the proper perspective of all that God's done in our life, he's exceeded all expectations. He's done far greater than we could have ever imagined with the ways that he's saved us, redeemed us, protected us, provided for us. He's done it. He's done it. And so as we approach him in prayer, it's just this humility too of, God, I this is what I think I desire. I want to align my life with you, but I believe you can do far beyond even what I'm thinking right now. And so help me to trust you in that, and to believe in that, to have that hope, and allow that to sort of drive us. But we sort of settle for the limited earthly desires. Like we're praying to God for earthly desires, and we're off track there. Yeah. He's like, no, I got way more. I want to do way more in your life than just give you a little promotion at work. Like, he may give you the promotion at work, but he's got far beyond bigger, better plans than just that, with how he wants to use your life, for how he wants me and you to know him in a more profound way. And to experience his presence and experience his goodness.
Yes.
All of that goes beyond even kind of what we're used to thinking.
It's really important to remember where this Ephesians 3:20 verse shows up in the context of the larger letter. It's a prayer that Paul is praying, and he starts off by saying, I bow my knee before the Father, right? So it even begins with a humble prayer, bowing to God's authority, recognizing you're more powerful than I am, and you know better than I do. And then he says to them that the thing that he is praying for is that they would be strengthened in their inner being by the Holy Spirit, so that Christ can dwell in them, and so that you can experience these famous words, so that you can know what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to experience the love of God that surpasses understanding, right? And so the first thing that Paul is praying for is, before anything changes circumstantially for you, I want something to change internally for you, where your inner capacity to experience the love and the glory of God grows And that's what he's saying is going to grow beyond what we could ask or imagine. The first thing that God wants to do is something inside of you to increase your capacity and your connection to his love and his glory. And then things will start to happen around you and through you and outside of you that are bigger than the things that you would have imagined for yourself. Another way of saying that is that God is much more concerned with your holiness than he is with your immediate happiness. Oh, yeah. And so the mistake that we make is to think the best possible thing would be for God to give me what I want right now according to my plans for my life. And he's saying, no, in a lot of situations, that would be absolutely terrible for you because it would derail you from the lifelong holiness and the much bigger love and adventure than I have made you for, okay? So it's really important to qualify this conversation by saying that sometimes, and in fact, a lot of the time, God will allow us to go through suffering because of what he wants to do inside of us in and through that suffering. He wants to stretch and expand your capacity to experience his love, because when he expands your bandwidth to experience his love, he's also expanding your bandwidth to be a conduit of his love to the people around you, that more of his love can flow through you to others. And that tends towards a much bigger adventure and a much better story for our lives than we would come up with for ourselves. So it's really, if you go look at the context of this prayer, I think it's like Ephesians 3:17 through 21, it really paints this beautiful picture of praying. Are we praying humbly with our knees bowed that God would do something inside of us so that we are better postured and equipped to do something in the world around us? It always begins with our holiness, and then it arrives at a place that is much more joyful and desirable than we would have come up with according to our own plan. But I think it's really dangerous when we expect God to change our circumstances prior to and apart from him changing our heart. That can really make us prideful and materialistic people, and he wants to make us holy and adventurous and joyful people.
That's right. And then our response is, wow, you're greater than I thought. Your ways are greater than my ways.
It's the worship that you're talking about.
That's right. And that's the response. And again, Patriots fans, like they thought, oh man, making the playoffs. Like they just wanted the playoffs. Like what if they would have just made the playoffs? No, this season is way greater. Like Drake May and Vrabel are greater than you even thought, Patriots fans. And there you were just, oh yeah, I just hope we make the playoffs. No, there's so much more. There's so much more with this team. And that greatness has now been revealed throughout the playoffs. And now they realize this. And so for us, the more we realize just how great God is, it strengthens our faith. It leads us to worship and gratitude. And we also realize, wait, his greatness is so incomprehensible that it goes so beyond our limited grasp and understanding. And it's this tension too. I was thinking a lot about this with this topic, is that we have to get to the place of he's omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. Like he's such a big, powerful God, and he's greater than I can imagine. And throughout my life, I can know this greatness more and more. Mm-hmm. That there is a way for us to grow in that, and to what you're talking about, the love of God. Like in many ways, we can't comprehend just how much he loves us, just how amazing his grace is. But at the same time, we can grow in that. We can know a little bit more of his character and start to grasp a little bit more. It gets revealed to us the more time we spend with him. That wow, he is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He is all powerful. He is all knowing, and that's a really good thing. And that now I can approach him in prayer with a better understanding of that. Still acknowledging humbly that you're so much bigger, that you can do so much more than I can even imagine, that you're capable of things that I can't even dream, wish, throw out there in my wildest dreams. And that's the amazing, cool part when you really let that set in.
That's so well said, man. I mean, I feel like I say this about every other episode, every other conversation that you and I have, but it's so wonderful how the book of Psalms gives us the experience. It gives us permission to process the entire human emotional experience in relationship with God. He's an all-powerful king and an all-loving father who gives us permission to come to him with access and with boldness, but also reminds us to be reverent about his power and his wisdom. And you just see this all over the Psalms. There are Psalms where David and other psalmists, they come to God and they say, I had these desires and I feel like nothing is going according to plan. I feel like life is falling short and I feel like you're far away from me, God. What are you up to? But they always do it with a sense of expectancy and a sense of reverence, right? And then there are other Psalms. I mean, I was just reading this morning, Psalm 20, where it says, may he grant you the desires of your heart, right? And then I think it says, would we see your victory and shout for joy and put a banner of victory for the Lord over what he's done in your life, right? So it's like there are these Psalms that just we're allowed to meet with God in these places of discouragement and kind of low hope and ask him to give us hope. And there are these Psalms that say, when you're in the midst of victory and you're noticing that God has done exceedingly more in your life than you expected, shout for joy about that and hang a banner of God's power and his providence over the victory that you're experiencing in your life. You and I talk about this with athletes all the time in different sports who we always catch them in their moments of greatest victory and they get those sideline interviews. And we love when those athletes hang sort of a banner of God's glory over the victory that they have just experienced. But the Bible also gives us permission when we're at our lowest point to ask him to renew our expectation, to renew our hope, to remind us of the desires of our heart that he has met and is going to meet. And I just think I love processing the places that I am at emotionally through the Psalms because it prepares you for the highest moments of life and the lowest moments of life and reminds you that God is in control at both of those times.
Gosh, it's great. Yeah, and it's like, part of me, we don't want to put these, like, this whole idea of expectations, like God, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, where we expect God to do something because he owes us. So we like put expectations on him. And that's not the answer, but it is this boldness and confidence that God, I don't really know what you're going to do, but I trust that you're going to exceed my expectations and that your way is best and that you know more than I do. And so I'm just coming to you in this surrender. Yeah. And so it's like, gosh, that's the posture that I just have to keep going back to. It's not, all right, this is what I want, and I know you can do it, and so you need to do it, and I expect you to do it. It's just like this, that's the wrong attitude. And I think too often we come before him with that attitude, and it's more so, no, I know you're big and great, and you're going to exceed my expectations, but remove my expectations.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting in the way of this. Like, you exceed them.
I mean, look at the way that people came to Jesus during his earthly ministry, right? They had all sorts of expectations and assumptions for what that they thought he should be doing in the world, right? And especially Jewish people who understood their long Old Testament history were saying, here is the one who has come to give us worldly power, worldly success, worldly victory. And Jesus said, your sights are aimed too low.
Amen.
You have no idea what I came here to do. And when he went to the cross, his disciples said, this must have been an abject failure because he didn't achieve the worldly victory, the worldly provision that we thought that he would, right? And then he rose from the dead. And he said, I came to defeat death, to forgive all your sin, to secure your destiny in the kingdom of God for all eternity. Do you really just want me to give you your worldly desires, your earthly desires for this life? Or do you want the kingdom? Do you want eternity? Do you want infinite adventure? Do you want unfathomable love? That is what Jesus came for. And so again, there's the difference between Eastern religion and Buddhism and sort of Christianity is Buddhism assigns all of our problems in life and all of our suffering to the fact that we have desires and expectations. And it says what you need to do is extinguish your expectations. If you just stop desiring things, then you'll never be disappointed and you'll never suffer. That's what nirvana means. It's the extinguishing of the inner flame to get rid of the desires that you have. Christianity says, God made you to have desires. He made you to have expectations. What sin does is it makes your expectations too low. It makes your desires too small. Don't extinguish your inner desires. Bring them to God and say, what do you want to do with this? And assume that maybe he knows better than you, right? And he'll give you the desires of your heart. You just don't know what the deepest desires of your heart really are. They're infinite love. They're eternal glory. They're Jesus, their communion with the Father and the Son by the power of the Holy Spirit. These are the things that he has made us for. And the problem that we get into is when we bring our short-sighted expectations to him and assume that we know better than he does, okay? And so that is critical here. And God, he doesn't dismiss us with shame when we do that, right? Like when one of my children comes to me and says, Daddy, I want a jelly bean. And I say, yeah, but buddy, we're going out to dinner tonight, and I don't want you to spoil your appetite with jelly beans. We're going to, what's their favorite thing right now? We're going to get a huge pepperoni pizza. Please don't spoil your appetite with cotton candy, right? That's what our Father is doing with us. He knows better than we do. And so I don't say, son, you're such an idiot for wanting jelly beans. I say, there's something better that's waiting for you out in the future, and I know what it is. Do you trust me enough to submit your expectations to me and wait for me to do more than you could imagine?
Gosh, love it. That's a great illustration. Man, this is a powerful topic. There's a lot of layers to it.
I think if you start naming your expectations pretty quickly, you'll get down to some of the deep layers of your heart.
Yeah.
And that can be it can be a scary place to be. It can be an emotional place to be. But it's an important place for us to dive down to every once in a while to say, what do I really want in life? And how have I been disappointed? And how might it be the case that God has something better for me, that he's going to do more than I desire because he knows better than I do? I mean, those are deep waters to swim in from sort of a spiritual perspective, but that's the place that I think God's word invites us to go, at least every once in a while, to do that sort of inner work of paying attention to what are my desires and how does God want to meet me there in ways that maybe he hasn't done yet, but I'm expecting him to.
Psalm 145:3, great is the Lord and highly to be praised, and his greatness is so vast and profound as to be unsearchable, incomprehensible to man.
That's good.
So do we want to, am I the God of my life, or am I serving a great God? Am I the Lord of my life, or is he the Lord of my life? And his greatness is so profound. Like that's the God we serve and have the opportunity to follow and trust. And we'll wrap with this though. You mentioned it earlier in Ephesians 1:17 through 21. This is Paul's prayer, that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give to you the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling, what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe, according to the working of his mighty power, which he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead, seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in that which is to come. And so there's a ton there. But that's the power that we have. God showed his power, raising Jesus back to life. We have the power of the Holy Spirit within us, working in us, and helping us to have that spirit of wisdom and that knowledge of him, the eyes of our understanding being enlightened. And so, like I was saying earlier, we get to know more and more, but then we also realize just how vast and profound and incomprehensible our great God is, which again leads us to worship and serving and gratitude.
Yeah.
So,
amen.
That's the message today. I hope it's encouraging to all of you listening today. And would love any feedback, any questions. If anything was maybe confusing, you want to unpack more, you can reach out, Bryce at unpackingit.com, Bryce at unpackingit.com. And Tripp, great insight, man, great encouragement. I appreciate that. The final thought we'll have today, just because we teased it earlier, but pretty big news with Mike McCarthy becoming the head coach of the Steelers. And I think it was one of those news it happened on Saturday. I know here in Charlotte we were all worried about the snowstorm, and then all of a sudden that comes across the ticker. It's like, wait, the Steelers, they get Mike McCarthy. Well, the story is, he's from Pittsburgh, and a lot of people are saying, is it really any different? Is he any different than Mike Tomlin? I'm intrigued by it, but I'm intrigued. But again, like we were talking about Joe Brady, who's his staff? Is he going to bring in an heir apparent that can take over? That's what I want. That's what I want to see. If that's in place, because if that is the case, I think this could work. Because McCarthy's a good coach, and they'll be fine with him. They'll be in the mix like they always are. But then maybe if they can find the right quarterback, groom him with McCarthy and kind of his track record on developing quarterbacks, hand that off to the next coach, build something. I could buy into that.
Man, I'm conflicted internally because we just had this great conversation about raising your expectations and being more hopeful. And now we're talking about this, and I don't think that this makes me hopeful for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team. I mean, yeah, man, I guess the argument that I've heard from McCarthy that I think is the right one is that he knows what it is like to be a part of a winning football team and a team that wins over the course of multiple seasons and really builds a solid team over time. My opinion is that McCarthy mostly skates on his reputation as a head coach from having coached Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, during the absolute prime of his career. And I think that McCarthy maybe gets more credit for that than I believe that he deserves. So I do think you already had a coach who was a solid Pittsburgh guy and who knew how to build a winning team. I mean, by definition, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record.
That's right. Nothing but winning.
And I really think it comes down to, can they figure out the quarterback position in Pittsburgh? I think it's all going to come down to that. If McCarthy is the guy that you bring in to shake things up, to start a new sort of era of Pittsburgh football after, how many seasons had Tomlin been there? Was it 19 seasons?
18, 19.
I think 19 is right. If he can get in there and they can figure out in the first season or two who their quarterback is going to be. But I kind of wonder if one of the reasons that they brought McCarthy in is because they expect Aaron Rodgers to play again next season.
That is a crazy saga to this. But I tend to think this has nothing to do with Rodgers. The decision is a separate decision. I just think that the situation is intriguing because he's there, but I can't imagine they made this decision based on that.
I mean, I think if I was going to steel man the case, I would say I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is ever involved in anything where it doesn't have a lot to do with his opinions and his feelings, his outspoken desires, right? Maybe I'm wrong about that.
He didn't help them do anything differently. Right? They were the same as always. They make it to the playoffs, they go out first round.
They would have been a lot worse without him this season, I would argue. But
then they could have gotten somebody else.
Right, exactly. They could have gotten somebody else. Exactly. That's my point. I think that Rodgers will play next season, and I think if you wanted to steel man what the Pittsburgh Steelers could do and should do, they need to figure out their plan for quarterback with this final season of Rodgers. They need to find a guy who they have high expectations for and give him one season to sit behind Aaron Rodgers. But then they better make sure that first QB after Rodgers hits. I expect Rodgers to be the starter for the Steelers coming into next season. I don't expect that to be super inspiring. And then, boy, what a mess you have if 6 games into the season you decide to bench Aaron Rodgers for some rookie that you have just drafted in probably. I mean, I feel like they're either going to address you don't address quarterback in free agency if Aaron Rodgers is still on your roster, is still a salaried quarterback for your team. You probably draft a quarterback in the first round, I guess. And then that could be potentially a tough situation for that kid if they start off the season 2-4 and they bring him in, but Rodgers is on the sideline. I think Rodgers had a much happier season for himself personally this year and seemed to be in a better place.
He liked being there, it seemed.
He liked being there. I think he enjoyed the season that they had. And I think that he can really cause a lot of trouble and a lot of drama when he is in a team's orbit. And so, man, that's my prediction for the next season. And I don't think that sets Mike McCarthy up for short-term success. Maybe long-term he can build something there and he can turn things around. But I'm going to go ahead and say it'll be another 8-9 season, 9-8 season next year. Rodgers wins them a few games. They find a rookie who plays a few games, and I just think it could be a mess of a situation there.
The Bengals are going to win that division. Let's go Bengals. It's the Bengals. It's the Bengals year next year.
I want us to have a conversation shortly after the Super Bowl about your Super Bowl pick for 2027, but let's save that for another time. That'll open a whole can of worms.
That's right. Gosh, yeah. All right, well, there you go. There's always drama. It's always intriguing. So,
I think there's going to be some drama in Pittsburgh. That's what I'm saying. I think there could be a little drama in Pittsburgh before things get on a stable footing. I think there could be a messy period of transition, and I wonder whether McCarthy survives that or not. I think he probably does because of the experience that he has in the NFL, but I'm not optimistic. In spite of the conversation we just had about expectations, I don't have high expectations for them next year.
I am fascinated by two things, and looking at some of the data, and it doesn't always add up but retreads in the NFL mean coaches that had one chance and then they get another chance. How many of them actually work out? This will be his third team.
He's like a retread of a retread of a retread,
which is unlikely to win a Super Bowl. But then also we've seen it in recent years, the older coaches not having as much success.
Yeah.
I think in many ways it was surprising at how bad the Raiders were with Pete Carroll, that he really didn't have a positive impact in Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
And then for Bill Belichick to not really do much after Brady left, not to mention it's not working out at Carolina. So is this age, listen, I love the value and wisdom of the older coaches, and we know what Andy Reid has done in kind of his later years as a coach. So it's not impossible, but it just seems like the NFL has kind of gone away from that. We see the young coach, us young guys, us 39-year-olds, Mike McDonald in Seattle, and what he's doing, McVay, and all these guys. So Canales in Carolina, is that more of the case? So Pittsburgh goes the opposite of that, which historically they went Tomlin, the young guy, the youngest coach.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just fascinating to me that whole dynamic of it all. And
I think they had a chance to do something exciting as one of the most storied franchises in the NFL. They had a chance to do something exciting and to try to innovate for a fan base that wants to see something exciting instead of the same old. Yeah. And I don't think this matches up with that. So, all the best to they have a huge fan base. They haven't necessarily suffered as a fan base over the years. So I think, you can't feel too bad for them, but I think things could get worse before they get better.
I do find it very interesting that McCarthy would coach the Packers, Cowboys, and Steelers.
That is pretty great, yeah.
But what a trifecta.
That's a pretty good resume, actually. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's like coaching, Ohio State and Alabama. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's a wild ride. So pretty cool for him. To only win one Super Bowl, but it's all right. He did all right in Dallas. It wasn't horrible, but
they were 15-1 in 2011.
Yeah,
that was 15 years ago, and he's going to be one of the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL. So I hope he proves me wrong. It'd be fun to see him prove me wrong, and for the Steelers to put something together in short order. That I think that's probably good for the NFL to have an exciting Pittsburgh Steelers team. So let's see if we see it.
All right, he's Tripp. I'm Bryce. We're sports fans who follow Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. He exceeds our expectations. He's beyond our comprehension. His greatness, his love, his grace. It's amazing. Let's serve him. Let's love him. Let's follow him. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.